Hi there. Welcome to a new episode of Branding with Friends, the show where branding meets key business topics. Here, you're going to learn tips straight from the experts on everything from strategic marketing to book writing to business mindset. We focus on what you can do right now to use these topics, plus the power of branding to attract your ideal clients. I'm your host, branding expert Annie Franceschi of Greatest Story Creative. I help service business owners tell their story and show their value through clear messaging and consistent branding. I'm also a former Disney storyteller, professional speaker, and the author of 2 best-selling books, Establish Yourself and Permission to Try. And today, I'm really excited to introduce you to one of my new friends in the business world. If you have been curious about starting a podcast and wondering, how should I brand it? How should I get started with making sure that that is going to be a great extension of my practice and my marketing? You're going to love today's episode and guest. My guest is Brandon Birkmeyer. Brandon is a branding coach who helps business owners build their personal reputations online through content and marketing. He is a seasoned marketing strategist, speaker, podcaster, and business coach. For over 17 years, Brandon has advised and directed brand strategy for top Fortune 100 companies, including Apple, Coca-Cola, Walmart, and Wells Fargo. He's currently the founder of Brands on Brands Consulting, and in 2022, he launched the podcast Branding Academy. He also produces the Brands on Brand podcast, which was named one of the top 20 best branding podcasts of 2021 and is consistently a top 5 personal branding podcast on Apple Podcasts. Brandon, that sounds awesome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I guess I need to shorten that. I'm like, it feels long when you're hearing someone talk about you. I got to just cut it down to the simple. We'll work together on that. I'll ask your advice on how to cut that down.
You have a lot of awesome things to share, but I mean, I think now we have a really good sense. And I love that we're talking a little bit about, you are so passionate about this idea of podcast branding that you have created your own academy for that. Do you want to tell us really briefly what that's all about?
Yeah, when I was starting my own show, I'd go to a lot of conventions where I was meeting other podcasters and learning the tips and tricks on like how to set up your equipment and how to record and how to get a good guest. But all the lines were out the door for the rooms that were talking about how to promote your show. And the people that were teaching this were people that had good things to say, but they were from a podcasting background or an engineering background or something else other than marketing. And I thought, I can bring my 20 years of marketing experience working at ad agencies and working on big brands to the table here to really set the stage for how do you take a show, create a brand around it, and then promote that so that people understand who you are, understand what your ideas are all about, and why they should or could work with you, and how to build a community around that. So I was really inspired to take that to the next level and build something. So I spent, a good amount of time figuring out what that would look like. 6 months in the drawing room, creating classes around, how to do this. So now I, have an online school for podcasters, and it's not just for people who already have shows, but for people who are just beginning so that they can build it the right way from when they start.
Awesome. Well, that's Podcast Branding Academy. You're clearly the right person to have on to talk about podcast branding. Past episodes of Branding with Friends have talked about hosting a podcast and guesting on other people's podcasts, but we really haven't had a show that really does this intersection between branding and marketing and podcasts themselves. So if you've been thinking about one or you have one and you want to make it better, today's the episode for you. If this is your first time watching, we've got 3 tips from Brandon to help you get started with branding a podcast. And we're going to save that 3rd tip for the end to make sure that you hear all of what Brandon can share with you today. So Brandon, kick us off. What is that first thing that, if you're a coach or consultant, that you want to think about when you're thinking about creating a podcast or branding one?
Yeah, I think, well, the first thing I call it's your why, right? It's your intention behind the things that you do. And I think we have this in common. We both work in the personal branding space. We talk a lot about how to establish yourself, like what you talk about, and also how to build the, what is it that you're all about? I used to call it this thing called brand. I had brand trust, brand love, and the brand, I can't remember the name now. I used to talk about this so long ago, but really it's your identity. And that identity is all about a couple of things. There's the things that you come up with that are who you are, what you talk about, and the intention behind that. And I think what a lot of podcasters get into, with the problem that they run into, is they aren't clear on why they started a podcast in the first place. Like, who you are and why you started your business, but you don't necessarily know why you're creating content and what the goal of that content is. So if I asked you, Annie, when you started the Brands with Friends show or Branding with Friends show, what was the goal?
Yeah, this was very strategic. I was actually planning my maternity leave and I thought, well, how can I create regular content, consistent content that would educate my ideal clients on the value of branding and my thoughts around it and introduce myself as an expert to them? How could that be like a regular thing for my email marketing? Because honestly, I hated writing newsletters and that's what everybody said you needed to do. And I was like, well, I want to do something else. So I came up with this system that I call a consistency container. If you want to learn more about consistency containers, they're in my book, Establish Yourself. But really, that's the idea, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube show like this, a blog series, something that helps you be consistent. So that was my way into all of that. And I do think that it's been successful and accomplished those goals because I had, as you said, that first I, which is intention.
Yeah, and what I think is there's three advantages to taking this road, right? And a lot of people, what I usually hear is, why do you want to start a podcast? Well, I'm looking for an audience, right? I need new customers. I need a new audience. And that's a okay goal. But if that's your only goal, there's probably better places for you to start and that have more discovery built into them, like social media or something like that. Or even honestly, just hand-to-hand networking, you're probably going to meet more people quicker than you will putting a podcast into the ether, right? But the impact that you're talking about, I call the impact, is the impact advantage. The idea that you're creating something that is helping and educating and serving your clients. It's an extension of you and your service, right? So the people you meet every day, you could say, hey, not only do I have the answer to this question, I actually have a deep dive on this in episode 13 of the show. It extends the impact you have in your business. So that's one intention that you could set that I think is a very strong reason to create something. It helps you expand your expert voice and build your reputation. The second is the content advantage. And this is where you're out there, you're creating something once for an hour, and it could be by yourself in a solo show or with somebody like we're doing here. The easiest way to create content is to have a conversation or to talk about something you have experience in, right? The content advantage is you doing that for an hour every week. And instead of hoping people find that 1 hour of content, you take that and you put it everywhere. You put that content on your website. So it's not just an empty website. It actually goes on your website as a blog that's been edited that people can find, but also that when Google looks for it, it's found in the search engine results. You can also chop it up into social media content, right? Into the, like all the things we're like, what do I post on social media? Is it like a selfie of me today at my computer again? Is it a coffee mug of me at the coffee shop? Like, what am I posting? Taking clips of you saying things in your flow, but just the most important piece is a great way to fill that content. So that's a content advantage. And then the last piece I call the community advantage, which it is about, like they say, I want to find an audience, but I'd rather you think about it as if you want to engage in the communities where your audience is, you have a tool for that. You can show up in, let's say that your service helps moms, right? You can show up in the moms group with content that serves them and say, oh, actually, I talk about this a lot and answer a question. And if you want more detail, here's my content on that. You can engage in those communities. And as they find your content, you can build a community around that. And then the secret hack to all this, the secret community advantage is like, if I had to set a goal starting all over, like, why do I create a new podcast? Why is branding going to create a second and a third podcast? It's going to be to create new relationships in a deeper way. The networking I got from podcasting is crazy. Our meeting today, us being able to be introduced and say hi to each other was fine. But it was way better to say, why don't we create some content together? Why don't we dive into each other's work and ask each other questions? Became a network extender much more quickly. And also I got to reach up to people that I look up to and say, instead of saying I'm a big fanboy, I can say, hey, I have a show. I'd love to bring you on.
I'm really glad you brought that up. And that was, so I'm big. I talk a lot about like double dip, triple dip, quadruple dips. Like we're all so busy. I feel like a lot of marketing gurus have taught us just create all this stuff, and not enough people talk about this first eye of intention. And I think you've just laid out all of these great ways to double and triple and quadruple dip. And I think we've been using Branding with Friends as an example that, many of you will know because you've been watching the show or listening to the show. It's on the website, it's on YouTube, it's transcribed. It gets advertised on my social media. I use it over and over again. But one of the things I love that you touched on is building the real relationships with people. So I knew I was not very good about collaborating. And so starting with Branding with Friends, we're now this is our 34th episode, I think. I have gotten to meet about 32, 33 incredible experts at what they do. And I have this great opportunity to say, hey, can I have you on my show versus, hey, can we network? Hey, can I talk to you about what I do? That naturally happens. Full disclosure is I think Brandon, you and I met like a week ago and I was on Brands on Brands because one of my clients met you and you're here new to the area, North Carolina. We met, hit it off, have talked. I've since sent you 2 fabulous collaborators and 1 potential amazing fit client in a week, which was only because you had me on your show. And so now, and I'm having you on my show. So this is how that world works. And your podcast doesn't have to just be this static thing. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I want to encourage all my clients, like strategic is my top strengths finder. This is why I'm so big on like, if you're going to do something, make it count every which way that you can. And I know you teach a lot and are starting a company or working on helping people repurpose content, right?
Yeah. Well, and let me go back for a sec. Cause when I asked, when we were in this little networking thing that they do at the co-working space, they said, the person I was talking to was like, well, how can I help you? Who can I introduce you to? And that's always a weird question, right? Like, I don't know what I need help with. But what I like to say is, well, I have a show called Brands on Brands. I talk to marketing experts, thought leaders in the community, things like that. I'm always looking for good guests. That is a way easier referral for people. Yes. I know 3 great people in the community. Let me send them to you. If nothing else, you get to know them. It does 2 things. One, she knows exactly what I'm about. She's like Brands on Brands. Brandon is like the content and branding guy. I'm in her head like that. And then she's referring me people to bring on the show. And she knows how to introduce us because it's like not a, hey, Brandon's here to ask you for something. It's Brandon has a show. He'd love to interview you. And
he has an opportunity for you, a visibility opportunity. Yeah.
So it's just an easier introduction. And I think everyone should have one, even if you never publish it, like being able to tell people I'm starting a show. It starts in 6 months. And it's going to be about these things. And I think you'd be perfect for it. You don't ever have to actually release this stuff. You should, because there's an advantage to it, but you don't have to at first. You can get used to it, get comfortable with it, save the content. And then when you're ready, have 10, 20 episodes saved and ready to go to release a show.
That is one way to do it. So that our first place we're starting is set a clear intention, know why you're doing it. That is also the heart of branding. Who are you? What do you want to be known for? It comes down to that kind of broader, big picture of what your brand is, what your business stands for. So a lot of people come to me and they don't have the strategy for their business, let alone their podcast. So if you are not clear on what your business is doing, start there and then move on to the podcast idea. Right. But speaking of that, what is that second thing we want to keep in mind?
Yeah. The second thing is once you figure out your why, it's the what, right? So you have your intention set, you have a good goal. Like I'd rather your goal be, I want to meet 20 amazing people in my industry, right? You have a great goal, like something like that. The what part is you have to have a good idea. Like what is the idea that you're bringing these people to? And it doesn't have to be like the most unique idea ever. It has to be simple. Right. So Brands on Brands is not the most unique name in the world. Neither is Branding with Friends. No offense. Like we had the same idea, which is
I'll
keep it
take
simple.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Like people look at it, they're like,
keep it simple.
I know what this show's about. I meet a lot of people that they're trying to come up with this great idea because they're worried that there's 100 shows just like the one they're thinking of. And that stops them from creating it. But I'm here to tell you that it just has to be simple, and simple is better. And the easiest way to do that is in terms of picking a niche, right? People love saying that. I think broad is okay in this, but you have to pick your neighborhood, right? So what I do is I go to like Apple Podcasts or even Amazon Books. They've categorized all the subject matter categories for you with an algorithm. They figured this out. They have the data to know how people think in terms of groups of content. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be a genius at this. You just look at what they're doing. I love going to Apple Podcasts, seeing what their categories are and saying, okay, within this, like business is a category. So I could have just started there. If I go into business, their subcategories are like entrepreneurship, marketing, management, careers, right? So
Yep.
pick one, finance, right? Pick one of those and say, okay, I am a marketing show. I'm a management show. I'm a careers show. Start with that, come up with a name that kind of is simple and makes sense for that, and get moving forward, right? So like picking your idea and making it simple is, I think, the next big thing. And what I love about that is it allows you room, especially when you're starting to create content, allows you room to fit a lot of things into that and pivot and move around. So when I started
Yeah.
this show, it was about like I was trying to start in the consulting space, going from a 20-year advertising career to a marketing consultant. So I was like, okay, I want to help entrepreneurs with branding and marketing. So I'll just start this show. And then it pivoted, right? Over time, I said, you know what? Now I want to do a show that's a little bit more about content marketing and how to use content to bring customers to you, not just like paid ads and everything under the sun, more about like the content marketing. And then a few like months later, I said, you know what? I did this season. I want to move to the next season, make that more focused even further about content marketing for personal brands specifically and service-based businesses. So now it's all about personal branding. Then I pivoted even deeper and said, you know what? I love podcasting. I'm going to talk about how to create content as a podcaster that helps you build your personal brand, grow your content marketing, and build a brand overall, right? It kept diving deeper, but having a starting place that was simple enough to give me that room helped. Now, I do think you
Yeah.
need to have very niche, clear offers for your business. That's different. I think a content container can be a little broader than those other things. So that's the first idea space. And then I have some other kind of tips for you if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I make my idea different and unique, if you want to get into that.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. And I love that you say, keep it simple. And I'm a big believer in clarity over creativity. We are also worried about being so creative that we're not being clear. People don't get what it is. And so you are missing, in many cases, opportunities. And that goes for your entire business marketing, not just a podcast. And that's why for, branding, is the word that I want my network to know me for. I do a lot more than just branding, but that is that key to unlock everything. And so that is why it's not a mistake that branding with friends exists. And prior to that, I had a speaking workshop called Branding with Annie. It's just a way of connecting those dots. So I think that permission to keep it simple, the permission, as you described, to go broad if you have an intention, but you are not sure where it's going to go. I love that idea. And I also just want to add to that too, that just in my experience, that the intention can be different. It doesn't have to be this networking show. It doesn't have to be these other things. It can be a simple idea. Like the simplest idea is something I actually just did, which for those of you, I know many of you have written books that are watching this. I just wrote a book called Establish Yourself. And I wanted to create a little podcast because everybody was asking me for the audiobook, and audiobooks are notoriously expensive to produce. And I don't know if it lends itself to that because there's a workbook and all these other things. So I did a Secret Answer C, and I've done a short season. It's going to be about 7 episodes. The first 3 are available now. It's the Establish Yourself podcast. You can find it at greateststorycreative.com/podcast. But if you want to see a really simple idea, literally, I took the kind of introductory sections from my book and made them like a mini audiobook experience. You can get a little bit of a sense of what the book's about. You can dive in after that if you want to, but if you've been meaning to read it and you're more of an audio person, it's that in-between step. It's a great strategy for me to share more about Establish Yourself and get that world out there to a new audience, or to, connect to an audience that has never picked up the physical book before or the ebook before. So this can look lots of different ways for you based on what you want to do. And it's kind of a fun experimental field, I think, with podcasting.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think when people get past the like first idea, like, okay, I'm going to have something, I know my category, right? Like I have a finance background. It's going to be about finance. Like usually it's your background. It's based on your experience or the passionate thing that you're curious about, that you're really like nerding out about and researching. It's going to be usually one of those two things. In that idea space. But if I can give like one bonus piece within the idea space, what I after people get that figured out, they still have some imposter syndrome around this show doesn't feel any different than the other shows out there. So how do I make it unique and special? And being branding people, I feel like it's our duty to help people with this. For me, there's 2, I think, brilliant things that help. One is like, you do have to just acknowledge that your show will be like a lot of other people's shows, but except for one thing. But it's up to you to figure out that one thing. right?
Yeah.
And that one thing is the thread that ties all the shows together. It's the perspective you're bringing in terms of like the way you ask questions, why you're asking questions, whatever that thing is. When I started my show, I had this one idea in my head that was like, I want people to build brands that matter. And what that meant to me was that there are so many businesses that become commodities and get priced out, that I want them to figure out how to matter to their customers so that they are loyal. And I explored that within my conversations. And so that one question made my branding show unique. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's unique because it's you and your voice, but an idea really grounds the uniqueness of a show. So, figuring out what that is for you, I think is somewhere, even if say you already have 100 shows, you can find that new idea today to help ground your show and take it through the next group of episodes, right?
Yeah,
That
kind of what I'm
one,
hearing you say is that there's some sort of thinking about some sort of twist, something if you've listened, hopefully you have done your homework or you will do your homework and listen to some of the other podcasts in your space, especially those at the top of the charts, maybe Brandon's if you're in this field. But listening to those things and listening for, like you gave this example of kind of asking about a specific topic. I've heard people do, what are you reading? Like they have different questions that angle onto something, or a specific kind of way they give a tip or a fun fact or something like that. What is that spin? That's something unique that you can bring to the table. With using Branding with Friends as an example, is, I have a strict format. It's 3 tips every time. Everybody brings some free gift, which we're about to do in just a second. But knowing and expecting that and having it not just be, there are a million podcasts out there with the free flowing conversation. I wanted something repeatable and also something that values your time. I know my clients are very busy, and getting to that heart of like, what are those 3 things to do? So you have already told us intention, idea. We've got one more that we're going to save for the end. But before we get there, I do have all my Branding with Friends guests bring something along. So thank you so much, Brandon. If folks want to learn more from you, learn more about Podcast Branding Academy and the other personal brand coaching that you do, how can they connect further with you?
Yeah, if anyone wants to have a conversation, I do free calls, 15 minutes, and I would love to talk about either your content idea that you're just having trouble figuring out how to get it started, like you've had too many ideas and you can't focus, how to get clarity on that. I'm happy to have a conversation about that and be that sounding board for you. Or if you're in the personal branding space and content in general is intimidating, let's have a conversation and get you there. I do this all the time for people that want to start podcasts, but in general, personal brands I work with all the time. So that's at brandsonbrands.com/coach. Very simple. It's a Calendly link and you set up a call.
Cool. And we'll make sure that that's here in the notes wherever you're watching or listening to Branding with Friends. And as always, as you've been listening to this and going, gosh, I really don't know what the intention is behind my business overall and what is my brand overall so that I can start a podcast. Like, what am I really trying to do? That is what I help clients do. So I help coaches and consultants do that work. And you can also hop on my calendar at greateststorycreative.com/consult, or the big red button on the website. But hopefully between Brandon and I, we've got you covered from soup to nuts for branding.
Yeah.
So that brings us around. So Brandon, you have been giving us these 3 I's. There's a third I that you're going to share with us. The first was intention. The second was idea. What is that third and final I tip?
Yeah. The third is all about your online identity. And so, identity being the I, once you've figured out why you have a show, which is going to keep you going all the time, and what your idea is, it's going to ground you in what you're creating this about and what it's for. Then you have to figure out where you're going to put this thing, right? The distribution side of things, and how that's going to look and live online. Because again, if you just create it and no one ever finds it, then the work will not pay out for you. The average, I think, podcast has about 8 episodes and then they quit. And I think the reason they quit is connected to these 3 things we've been talking about. Either they created it for the wrong reason and they have no reason to continue. They didn't have a show that made sense for their world, like their content world. Or this last piece is it's not in places where people can find it. So they're not getting any of that traction that they're looking for. And traction can be a lot of things. But one of my favorite things about establishing an online identity is being everywhere. Now, I know a lot of people say be in one place, right? Start with just Instagram or just Facebook or just LinkedIn. Start with one place, get comfortable, build out your profile, whatever the thing is. I disagree with that. I say be everywhere, but create in one place first. So if you can create something, and I say podcast because that's my stepping stone. I think it's the simplest starting point versus blogging or YouTube videoing or whatever you want to, call it.
Yeah.
Live video, the other thing. I think just having a conversation, and you can start with cameras off and then eventually turn them on, is the easiest stepping point from someone who never did it to someone who's doing it. So when I, went from corporate to an entrepreneur, I had to get comfortable with these things and getting the voice out of my head and out there as perspective. A podcast helped me get there faster because it was more natural than these other mediums for me.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm sure you can relate. So the idea that you are out there and starting your identity with this one piece and then proliferating it is the trick. So how do you take your podcast and then put it everywhere? Well, you do a couple things. You can simply transcribe it. There are tools out there that are like $10 a month that'll take your whole video and show and whatever and turn it into words. And then you can look at those words and turn them into all these other things, right? Because when you're looking at words, the editing process is less intimidating. I'm not a video editor. I'm not an audio editor, but I do know how to read and cut out things that don't belong, right?
Right.
And you actually, as a human, read 4 times faster than you can watch something. And if you are skimming, you actually are reading like 8 to 10 times faster than you can actually edit when you're looking. So for me, editing is very quick. I'm like skimming. And if I have a conversation like this, I can actually jump to the beginning of a question and say, okay, I probably want to start with the third question we had today. Cut this piece out as a train of thought, make that one article that follows one train of thought. And because this conversation is a half hour, it's probably going to be about 5,000 words. But if I pick one train of thought, that's probably going to be cut down to 800 to 1,200 words, which is the best size that a blog post can be. So, and editing 800 words is so much easier than editing 5,000. So
right.
I find the 800 words.
Or sitting down and trying to write 5,000 words
right.
versus talk it. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, just answering this question. There's a train of thought. We're done. Right. That is a blog post that follows one category of information that's easy to find and search. So I transcribe, find that train of thought, cut it down. And then that same cut down, those same 800 words are now a YouTube video of a length that makes sense. Instead of it being 30 minutes, it's somewhere in that 5 to 10 minute realm, right? That people will watch just to get the nugget of information that's interesting. I don't have to edit that down. I just have to put an intro and an end on it. And then the snippets within that, let me find the little 1 minute clip within the 800 words that I can post as videos on social media. Much easier to do when you're looking at it in words. And there's a tool called Descript that Descript, Descript, that you can just pop a video into, delete the words, and it deletes the video pieces that are associated with that word and leaves just the piece you want. You don't even have to video edit. You just have to backspace and delete the words, and it edits the video for you. So
that is cool.
The tools are out there.
There's always so many great tools, but I love that you've shared all those great examples, Brandon. And I think bring to the table, again, the double dip, the triple dip, the quadruple dip. How can you think work smarter, not harder? And I think for many years earlier on in my business, I thought I had to just constantly create new stuff. And I don't think you do, because so many of us, like, I know, when this first comes out, not everyone's going to see this episode. Like, some people are going to open it, a few people are going to get to it, but they're going to come back to it. I've had clients and prospective clients and new clients, but say, oh, I went back and I binged all of these episodes of Branding with Friends. And so it is a long game that you can repurpose things, and you should, because we can't just if we constantly create new things, we don't get to refine what we're doing. We don't get to share our expertise as well. And you don't get credit for all this hard work you're doing. So thank you for giving that example. And I would just apply that to any form of content. So if maybe blogging is your thing, versus, podcasting or whatever it may be, same idea. Like, how can you cut those things together and reuse them in lots of different ways? Brandon's a genius at that. I learned many new things today, including that tool. So I'm going to check that out after today. But those are our 3 kind of big things today. So intention, idea, and identity. That's how to get started with branding your podcast. Anything else you want to share, Brandon, before we wrap today?
I started, to your point about blogging, I started by trying to write this stuff out. Right? I was like, I can try to write quickly. And then I'm like, well, let me try to now convert this to the media that actually shows up in the world, which is mostly video content. And when I tried to reading it, I sounded like a robot, right? Like, you can't read with emotion the way you want. I even tried to do it like as an actor and adding emotions and feeling, and it just sounded fake or put on. I could not do it. And then I tried it a different way. I was like, I would read some and then I would ad lib, and then I'd read some and I'd ad lib. That worked okay, but there was a lot of weird ums and ahs and things I had to edit out. And then I tried writing it, putting it away as a blog, writing what my three main points were, and just having those in front of me, and then riffing again from the beginning off of those 3 points. That worked the most out of all of them because it was the most natural. Me just saying, there's three things I want to talk about today. Here's number one. And then I would riff off the number one and go from there, because all I was doing was referring to some bullets, right? And that's, I think, we naturally, if we have our 3 cohesive ideas like we did today, it's easy to then fill in the blanks with your experience that you already have in your head from that. And then I realized I didn't have to write the blog first. I could start by just having 3 things I want to say about something, turning the camera on, recording, and then going backwards into putting blogs out after that. So it was a process for me. I did try to write first, but that just didn't work. But it's,
me too.
Yeah.
I did newsletters for years. And I think for me, it was a lot of finding this format. And, it's funny because everyone calls this a podcast, and it's not yet a podcast. One day it'll be syndicated to that. But it was the easiest thing I could do, because literally it's just me and you showing up. It's currently September. This will be our November episode. It's so easy. It just whatever makes your life easier to do and feels the most natural to you. So that might not be podcasting, right? Writing might come more naturally to you. But I love that you shared those examples today. And thank you so much for sharing your genius in this world with us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you all listening. And for me, everyone, like, if you can go from resume to reputation, then the fastest way to get there is by building your brand. And for a lot of people, your personal brand. But I think the fastest way to do that is by building your podcast and your podcast brand, because it's so natural in general, and then can be used across all these platforms that we talk about every day, that everyone's very, like, I even have TikToks. Like, I'm not there dancing. I'm using clips. That is my podcast branding, is professional clips taken from this, put into these formats in a way that's appropriate. So that's what this is all to me. It's, how do you find your voice and your ideas and format them in a way that is natural, that brings your message to the world. So I appreciate being able to share that with everyone today.
Yes. Thanks, Brandon. And we hope that you enjoyed yet another episode of Branding with Friends. So many thanks to my special guest, Brandon Birkmeyer. Tune in next time when we're going to share yet another topic where branding meets business. And until then, I'm Annie Franceschi of Greatest Story Creative. You can find all our episodes, branding resources, and more on our website, greateststorycreative.com. Stay awesome.